Oh. Blitz the ambassador, best I can, preceded by the living legend, the living legacy. Who knows? Get your, get your tinfoil hat out, because I'm gonna say this. Could possibly be the clone, the living embodiment of the legacy of Fela Kuti, Shehan Kuti. Shehan Kuti, African soldier, Blitz the ambassador, best I can. Yes. And I feel like I should play African artists every damn show. Every damn live broadcast, I should bump some African artists just to piss off the ADOS. Africans stealing our jobs. Yeah, I say that. Let's just do African artists for the rest of. I mean, all artists I play are African artists, but you know what I mean. How ADOS got it all twisted. They think that Africans are they think they're descendants of Africans, but exempt them from African. Anyway, I don't know. When you get to a certain age, when you talk to your parents, you have to like kind of prepare yourself to speak to your parents. When, and I ain't the only one. I'm a snitch on everybody. You get to a certain age, you got your own wife, your own kids, your own mortgage, your own responsibility, your own bills. And when your parents call you, you have to kind of psych yourself up to talk to your own parents. Don't front. I know some of y'all got perfect relationships on the internet, but in the real world, our relationships aren't the best. I ain't saying it's a bad relationship. It's just my wife too. He's like, oh, my mom's on the phone. Take a breath. Got to talk to my mama. Or let me let it go to message, and I'm calling my mama back when I'm ready to talk to her. It ain't just my mama though. It's my grandmama, my aunties, the elders of the family. Because when they get you, they got you. That's how they get you. When they got you, they call you. They gonna have you till they let you go. So you got to kind of prepare yourself. So anyway, my mom called during the day. I'm like, oh, my mom's calling. And I'm like, I got all this. I mean, I ain't gonna even burden y'all with my troubles. Oh, my burdens. My burdens. That's why I can't even listen to that gospel music type stuff. Because I ain't got to listen to it. I live it. No, to lay my burdens down. Anyway, I didn't want to, I was like, I didn't answer the phone. And I'm like, she called me during the middle of the day, the work day. When sometimes she called me in the middle of my broadcast. So I'm like, my mom called. Make a mental note because I got to call her back. But I just got to prep myself to talk to my mama or my aunties or any of the elders and the seniors in my family. It's respectful, but it's just preparation so that I can give them the best of me. But anyway, I go down to bed last night. I go to bed after 11 o'clock, and the phone rings. And I'm like, who the hell could be calling? My wife's like, who's calling you this late? And I'm like, I know my mistresses. They know better than call this late. So I don't know who it could be. And I look over, it was my mother calling. And I'm like, oh, shucks. My mom would never call this late. Ever. She's never called me this late. I can't in my adult life. I mean, she's respectful. You don't call nobody house midnight, 1 o'clock during the week. So I immediately answer the phone because I'm like, yo, uh-oh. I wish I had answered the phone earlier in the afternoon when she called me. So anyway, I get on the phone. First thing she says to me is, Ricky out. Ah, glory. Glory! Ricky is out, y'all. And I don't know, if you listen to the Bro Diallo show, from time to time you've heard me mention Free Ricky Kid, refer people to the Free Ricky Kid website, or if you follow me on social media, you saw me from time to time post a Free Ricky Kid hashtag. But, I guess I won't have to post that anymore because Ricky Kid is free. As of yesterday, they finally let him out of that GD prison cell. So, that is cause for celebration, y'all. Welcome home, Ricky. 23 years for a murder they knew damn well he didn't commit. That was for you, Ricky. Welcome home, Ricky. Now I ain't gonna keep talking about this. I'm an alpha male. I don't want to cry on the air. But 23 years. Uh, I I grew up with Ricky. I don't know if you know, as in the African American community, I hate when people. I'm in a good mood. I got to talk about some tragic stuff today, but I'm just in a good mood. I'm sorry. I know this is not going to be don't worry. I'll go back to being the Grinch of Pan Africanism. I'll go back to the curmudgeon, hateful hater, player hater that y'all normally used to. But right now, I feel good. I'm happy. I'm happy that the brothers out. And as I say, you know, when people go on white radio and they say, well, in the African American community, explaining how black people do to white folks, I don't like that. And if I have to explain it, then I shouldn't. But anyway, we all know what a play cousin is, right? Your mama's best friends, children, are your play cousins. So I grew up with Ricky Kidd. I mean, he's one of the people I know longest in my life. And we grew up poor. And let me tell y'all something. Y'all don't know. I hear some people talk about poverty. We grew up in what is called compounding poverty. Multi-generational poverty. Compounded by drug addiction, violence, fatherlessness. And, you know, so many of my peers have gone through this. In fact, in the last 2 years, I've had at least 3 childhood friends who came out of prison. And they're my age, give or take a year. And you know, and I know some brothers that I came up with grew up in my housing project or the surrounding neighborhoods. And I see them brothers. I don't care if they selling cars. I don't care if they still, you know, trying to put themselves together, put their lives together. I'm really in awe. You know, like CeeLo said, I'm amazed that we made it this far. Because so many people didn't. Shout out to Dion, rest in peace. Shout out to Carlton, rest in peace. I can't even go into the list of brothers that died. Or the sisters, Critty Brown. I can't even go into the list of all the brothers and sisters that came up in my neighborhood around my way that aren't here. Because that would take up too much time. And again, I ain't trying to break down on the air, but I take this hella personal. This is why I'm a revolutionary. To liberate my people and to get justice and retribution for what's happened to my people. And that's what gave me the impetus to find out, to truly understand why the world is the way it was. All these beautiful people I grew up with suffering immensely over nothing, starving when there's abundant food everywhere. Getting substandard education when there's knowledge everywhere. The resources for proper housing and clothes. Getting miseducation. Every day in our young lives, we 12, 13 years old, and all we hear is gangsta, gangsta, kill a nigga, shoot a nigga, stab a nigga, kill a nigga, dead nigga, dread, drug. I mean, I'm amazed that we made it this far. And every time I've gone home in the last few years, I'm able to reunite with, break bread with a brother or sister that was incarcerated. Now, when I got expelled from the public school system in the 8th grade over some BS, I went off to private school. And I had an aunt that paid my way to Bishop Hogan Catholic School. So I lived in me and my sister were the only 2 people that lived in the projects that went to that school. And, you know, I saw how the other half lived. And I discovered that middle class and rich kids did as much drugs, did as much shoplifting, had as much premarital sex, and did all the dirt. In fact, had higher quality drugs and stole higher quality products, engaged in just as much peer bullying and peer pressure. You know, I go to a party in the hood and it be 6 brothers sharing a half a pint of Cisco or a pint of Mad Dog outside the party. And we all passing around 140 ounce at a hood party. You go to a middle class party, same demographic, but they middle class or upper class, They got a whole liquor cabinet. But we're the bad guys. I've seen kids from my high school engage in stuff, and they don't even get arrested. They get a warning. They don't even get a pat down. They don't get thrown into jail for stuff they lock people up in my neighborhood for. So anyway, all that to say, I don't care where you are. I mean, if you came up like us, you know, and even the few of us who go to college and avoid prison, it's only because of the struggles and sacrifices of those who did end up there. So, welcome home, Ricky Kid. 23 years for a murder they knew he didn't commit. And I talked to some policemen, and I say, and detectives, why y'all got Ricky hemmed up like that? Well, he did some other stuff. And I'm like, then prosecute him for some other stuff. Why y'all got him on a murder charge? Well, and I talked to Ricky when he was in the first couple of years he was in. And he's poor. He went on a capital murder charge with a public defendant who didn't even talk to his lawyer too. And there was all kind of discrepancies, but they didn't have any money. We didn't have any. Nobody had money for the case. And now they talking about they didn't let Ricky out. They talking about he's not eligible for any compensation after they put this innocent man in prison for 23 years. You know. But anyway, I'm really happy. Shout out to his sister Nikki Kid. Yes, her name is Nikki, Ricky, and their mother's name is Vicky. Hey, I didn't have nothing to do with that, but shout out to them anyway. We used to make fun. But anyway, shout out to Nikki, Nichelle. Shout out to Nikki Kid. I mean, she carried that burden. She rallied the Innocence Project. She got her brother out. I mean, she is a modern day Harriet Tubman. Shout out to Ricky. Welcome home. Shout out to Nikki. We need to give the Tubman Awards because she reached in there and brought her baby brother out of the belly of the beast. That was really good news. I couldn't even get back to sleep last night. You know, I was reading up on the story and reminiscing. And just a week or two ago, I was looking at some old pictures. My sister had a birthday party, a little bitty. Like she was like 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. So which means I was like 5. And me and Ricky was standing there in our short shorts and tall socks. Man, you know, I ain't never forgot. I mean, I haven't contacted him and spoke with him in such a while. We were writing back and forth with travels and stuff. I'm so happy, and I hope when I get back to Kansas City in a couple of months, I can break bread with the brother. But I'm so happy. My mom called me late last night. I didn't even look at the time because I knew it was just an obscene time, but I couldn't even get back to sleep, y'all. And, I mean, with what little victories we have. And shout out to the Innocence Project. Shout out to all the team of lawyers and law students and everybody who worked on that, people who got the word out about Ricky. I hope that Ricky, shout out to all my brothers that made it out. And you know, when I say he's free, it's like Neely Fuller said, you got prison is greater confinement. Even if you're not in jail, you're incarcerated under white domination. So he calls it lesser confinement and greater confinement. So, I mean, I know he's happy to be home. For the first time, he gets to see his daughter, who was born a couple of months after they incarcerated him. You know, and by the time, and this is Kansas City, Missouri, even the rednecks in Missouri was like, why y'all got this dude locked up? Because it was so obvious that he was on the other side of town. He was literally in the sheriff's department. He went, because back in the early 90s, or in the mid 90s, and I mean, go look up crime stats in the 90s. Kansas City was wild. But anyway, you go, and you had to go get go to the sheriff's department to get a permit to buy certain firearms. So he was literally at the sheriff's department. He was within a legal government institution. I mean, can you get a better alibi than that at the time of the homicide. And again, Ricky was loyal to people who weren't loyal to him, some sellouts. You know, he showed love to people that didn't reciprocate that love. But anyway, that's all about it. We're going forward ever, backwards never. Sankofa. You know, we gonna keep advancing. We're not gonna forget the past, but we're not gonna allow that to prevent our advancing forward. Last time, shout out to Ricky Kidd. Welcome home, Ricky Kidd. Shout out to Nikki, his sister, who got him out. You know, shout out to his mother. Shout out to his whole family. And if your people are in there, let that be a lesson. If you got people in the belly of the beast, if you got innocent people locked up because they couldn't afford proper legal representation, which is their constitutional right, because some racist pig had a vendetta against them, which is Ricky also did that. A lot of racist cops. Here's the thing, and again about Kansas City. When I was a kid in the streets of Kansas City, the same pigs that were harassing and arresting my father would harass and arrest me. That's how it is in these small towns. These cops know who you are, and they develop jealousy, animosity, hostility, personal grudges. You know, my dad was Diallo, I was Diallo, so that was a rare name. So they'd harass you and be like, "Oh, I know, I used to lock up your daddy." So these cops, you know, if it was like they developed these personal, I mean, just last year, the NAACP had to put out a travel advisory for black people traveling in Missouri, on Missouri roadways. Racist AF. And Missouri is the Midwest. It's not even the dirty South. It's not even the Mason-Dixon. But like Malcolm said, if we south of the Canadian border, we south. But let me say again what I was trying to say. If you got somebody that you take personal, that you're concerned about, that you know about, because we know about Russell Maroon Shorts, Mutulu Shakur, Jalil Muta King. We know about our Mumia Abu Jamal, Asada Shakur, Pete O'Neill. We know about our more well-known political prisoners and freedom fighters in exile and locked up. But for every well-known, for every Mumia, there are literally hundreds of Ricky Kids that weren't necessarily high profile. But every black man, every black woman incarcerated in America is a political prisoner. The laws in this society are political, and they are racist. So I don't even care if the black person's guilty of the crime. They're still a political prisoner. I don't think the United States should have any jurisdiction over black people. It's just like the Native Americans. They have their own court, and they have their own judicial system. I think we should have that too. I don't think white people should be allowed to sit on juries. I don't believe white people should be allowed to police black communities. It's too many consistent years of predatory and unjust behavior. Y'all done had more chances than y'all deserve. Yeah, that's my position. But, you know, some of us is liberal, colorblind. But anyway, like I said, I told you, the anger will come back. Angry black man here now. But I'm very, very happy. I'm very overjoyed. I'm very appreciative for all the people that put in that work to get Ricky Kidd out. And Ricky Kidd deserves to be home. He is an asset to the community, not a threat to the community. And y'all know who I am, how I feel about this gangster-ish. So, welcome home. Rest, reconnect, and, you know, I'm pretty sure he's going to start working to get other people out. The Harriet Tubman Code, that's what it's called. Welcome home, Ricky Kidd. Let's move on. Today is part 2, United States, Demented and Dying Empire. But before I go into that, there's a lot, and I want to share, because of this death penalty stuff, I want to actually share some insights from political prisoners and incarcerated people. You know, so I got some words of wisdom from Jalil Muta King, and I want, you know, to play Russell Maroon Schultz, our political prisoners. But before that, there's now a group of black farmers that are coming together to appeal to the agriculture department and their local and federal government about black farmers being excluded from the booming marijuana industry. And when I read this story, I'm like, shoulder shrug. I'm really sick. No, I'm not. I'm not sick. I'm just indifferent at this point. I don't understand this about black people. And I thought I knew black people. I like to believe I know black people, but perhaps a black person can explain this to me. Because I've been black all my life. And I'm probably going to die black. Unless I get some of that Michael Jackson money. Get some of that Michael Jackson surgery. Then I could transform myself. But until I get that money, I'm here. I'm stuck with y'all. And explain something to me. Some of y'all people with PhD. And maybe I got a master's in blackness. An undergrad in blackness. But I don't have a master level. I don't have a PhD level in blackness. So maybe there's some hyper blacks out there, mega blacks, optimist blacks, that can explain this behavior to me because I see it all my life. I've tried to understand it, but I don't. And here it is. How come black people live, dwell, exist, perpetuate under oppression, but we always get upset when oppression stuff happens? Like, why do we, like, I don't understand how we deal with this. I call it atrocity hopping. Like we live under an overall umbrella of oppression. But we tend to, instead of dealing with the overall system of oppression, we deal with atrocities that happen within oppression. And we jump from one to the next. We don't even carry the one atrocity to the next. We go from Scottsboro Boys, look it up, and then we drop Scottsboro Boys, and we go to the Central Park 5. Then we drop the Central Park 5. Then we go to the Jenna 6. Then we drop it, and then we go to Tulia, Texas. Then look up those incidents. They're almost identical. A whole crop of black people just snatched up by the system, thrown into prison on some obviously trumped up charges. Black people get all up in the tizzy, and then we sit down and go to the next. And we know it's going to happen again and again and again since the 15 to 1400s. In the so-called New World, this has been going on. But every time it happens, it seems like we don't really connect it to the previous time it happens. Like whatever mobilization we did for the last time black farmers were screwed over, shouldn't that infrastructure and apparatus be in place for the next time? Why do we live under oppression, but act like we're not living under oppression? So yes, the black farmers were going to get burnt on when weed became legal. And black weed dealers and black formerly incarcerated and black retail, black wholesale, black warehousing, black transport, black farmers, black physicians, black clinicians, black nurses, everybody black is going to get screwed over in this new weed boom. Just like we were screwed over in the tech boom. And we were screwed over in the agricultural green revolution. Just like we were screwed over in every other economic and technological boom that has come to this country since the cotton gin. And you didn't know that you lived under oppression the day before you got screwed out of the weed boom? Seriously. Seriously. I don't understand this. Why weren't you a revolutionary the day before the weed boom? Or even after the day after the weed boom? I don't understand why we just make a way, Lord, make a way somehow, while here beneath the cross our brow. We just dwell in this racist, oppressive, insane capitalist system and just get by the sweet by and by. And then when some racist stuff happen, we want to whoop and holler like, Lord, did you see what they done did? Yes, I saw what they done did because they done been doing it. And they're going to continue to do it as long as they have the power to do it. But we are very comfortable with white people in power. We're very comfortable with living under the dictates of Western culture, the Western mentality. We're very comfortable with packing up our precious little African children and serving them up to the educational system on a platter. And then after we serve them up to the educational system on a platter, we go and encourage them to fully participate and engage in the economy. I don't understand this. Now, what I don't understand is, because I understand submission. I fully understand submission. And I understand resistance. I don't understand this halfway submission, halfway resistance. That's where I get lost, where they get swirled together and intertwined with each other. That's what I don't understand. Why are you periodic resistance? That's what I don't understand. Sporadic resistance. That's what I don't understand. Temporary resistance. That's what I don't understand. Submit or resist. It would make things much simpler for everybody. But we got these atrocity hopping, this sporadic stuff. Of course, if you're a black farmer in America, you think you're the first black farmer in America to get screwed over? Did you think you black farmers who are now organizing to go and appeal because we're locked out of the weed boom? Did you expect they were going to do right when you first started hearing about reform, the drug, and repeal of the drug laws and reform on weed and weed legalization? Did you sit in your overalls on your porch chewing a wheat stalk talking about, well, they on their way to make the weed legal. So I suppose they going to do right this time. I suppose it, and let me okay, what's your point? Of course they screwed over black farmers. When have they not screwed over black farmers? Give me one time where the government, the federal government, the state or local government, where the government institutions and bureaucracies that deal from the Food and Health Administration to the Agricultural Department to the Health Department, when the private industry, when the banks, when it comes to loaning you money to expand your farm or to repair your tractor, tell me one time white people have been in a position to not screw us over and they chose that option. When have they didn't screw us over? So you should have been ready for this long before they even thought about weed legalization. Every farmer right now should look at every other black farmer and say, listen, whatever happens, I don't care if they come up with some new GMOs, whether there's a new organic farming boom, whether there's a revolution in fertilization, whatever comes, whatever advancements or transformation that come to agriculture from today, forever, we're going to get screwed over. So what are we going to do before we get screwed over? What are we going to do to anticipate the screw over? Oh no, let's just wait. Let's just farm our land. And then after they screw us over, we're going to get these here petitions. And we're going to play these here lawyers. And we're going to go to that damn media and let everybody know how they done did us. What the blood clot? And I ain't trying to pick on the farmers. Because black contractors, don't get me started on black contractors. Right now there is a building boom based on fiat currency, welfare tip reforms. There is a building boom. If you drive towards anywhere in Chicago, you're going to see them throwing up everything from skyscrapers to two flats to bungalows. There's a building boom all over Chicago. And guess what? The black contractors are locked out. And this is at least the 15th to 20th building boom that has happened in Chicago since the Great Depression. And the black contractors, we got a minority contractors. Sometimes they say minority contractors, but black contractors are hip when they say minority contractors. White women, what the white contractors do is sign their business over to their wives, because now women get to be minorities, and then black people are like, damn, you got the same name as your husband. How is you a minority? I'm a woman. Hear me roar. So white women got a lot of affirmative action payouts and minority contract. And now the LGBT, white gays and trans and lesbians, white folks who didn't suffer the discrimination still get to pretend like they are worthy of minority. Oh, I'm a minority too. I'm gay. And the billionaire gay dudes. As if gay white men haven't been fully embedded in this racist system, openly or hidden, closeted. So now black contractors are hip to that, so they don't say minority contracting anymore. They say black, or they'll have some Argentinian white man who's from Argentina, white as hell, from Spain, is in Europe. And he comes and say, "Well, I'm from Argentina. I'm a Latino. I'm a minority contractor. Dude, blonde hair, blue eyes." Yeah, there's white people in Latin America. Yes, Spanish is a European language, not a Native American language, but I digress. So, anyway, the minority contractors, weeping and wailing and moaning and gnashing of teeth. What about the tech boom, the internet boom, and black coders, and we're gonna do STEM? I don't understand it. We are oppressed. And I know black people, when you get your little job, you get your little paper, your little degree, you get your car note, and you're up consistent on your car note, you get your first, maybe second, third mortgage, and you got people, tenants paying for you, you got a nice watch, Rolex watch, hell, you might even got a wicked jump shot, and you on the playing chasing balls for millions of dollars. Black people, we like to pretend that we're not oppressed. But there is no such thing as individual oppression or individual freedom. If your people are oppressed, you are oppressed. If your people are liberated, then you are liberated. But it ain't nothing personal or individual about it. And you are either fighting towards liberation or you're helping to sustain oppression. There is no halfway. There is no neutral position for any black person. If you are not consciously, deliberately making positive contributions to the just aspirations of black people, if you are not thinking about studying, researching, contemplating, organizing, engaging, breathing, living for black liberation, if you are not an enemy of our oppressors, if you are not deliberately, consciously working to dismantle the systems and institutions of global white domination, you are a traitor to your race. You are a traitor. I'm sorry. There's a lot of traitors listening here. But a white man said it. I didn't say it. Howard Zinn said you can't be neutral on a speeding train. And the speeding train is the whole society. The society is moving. The society is organic. It's a large organism. It doesn't sit still. It's not static. So it's either moving towards justice or moving towards repression. It's falling to the left or it's falling towards the right. It's growing towards the left or it's growing towards the right. It's never stagnant. It's either contracting or expanding. So you have to decide. Am I going to be for justice or am I going to be for repression and oppression? Am I going to be an enemy of my oppressor or am I going to be an asset to my oppressors? And this quote, y'all need to write this down. Y'all need to write this down. And I hate to say this. I hate quoting myself on this because this is a tragic reality. But here's the quote. In their drive to dominate the world and oppress the world's masses, white people have more black allies than black enemies. In their efforts and agendas, they have more black allies than they have black enemies. So I know I might seem like a bad guy when y'all come and tell me about Stephon Clark, or y'all tell me about these damn black farmers, or y'all tell me about these minority contractors. I know y'all might be like, Diallo, where's your heart? I'm like, my heart is within my rib cage, and my heart pumps oxygenated blood to the rest of my organs. Because I don't do it. This ain't a heart thing. This is a mind thing for me. I think about it. So yeah, of course you were screwed over, black farmers. What the hell did you expect? What do you think that happened to the black farmers the year before that, and year before that, year before that, all the way back to when we were sharecropping? We ain't got a fair shake since the Emancipation Proclamation. What did you do in the meantime, the in-between time? When I was at my house, you was at mine. What did you do? What did y'all do to prepare for this? What are y'all doing to prepare for the next screw over? And it's even this thing There's another story that's related to this where they talk about black identity extremists. And they found out that the FBI and National Security Agency prioritized monitoring and pursuing black identity extremists over white nationalists, right? even though even though white nationalists, through all academics, all crime stats, FBI crime stats, what they got, like, there's other institutions that study crime, like Harvard Law Institute and all those other places, they all say the number one threat, the number one purveyor of political violence in the United States are white nationalists, right wing. And black people are like, they coming after us and they don't go after the white. And I'm like, okay, your point. Your point. Did you expect them to? What more would you, what do you want? I feel like, what's his name? Tyrese, what more do you want from me? That's what the white man says. Look, the one thing that we can't say, we can say a lot of things about white folks. But one thing we cannot say is that they've been inconsistent. That's one thing I ain't gonna let y'all lie on my white folks like that. Shoot. That's one thing. That's one thing that would cause me to fight for white folks, to jump the line and fight on the white folks' side, is if y'all say that they haven't been, because one thing boss man has always been is consistent. Consistently discriminatory, consistently racist, consistently hand in our pocket robbing us. And consistently lying about why he's so rich and we so poor. We work hard and we have strong family values as to why you people don't. So they're going to rob you and then they're going to lie about it. They're going to rob you and then they're going to claim you robbing them. That's one thing. They have been consistent. That's one thing. That's one. If that's a compliment, then it's a compliment. You say, hey, bro, Diallo's an Uncle Tom. Hey, if the truth makes me a Tom, then I'm going to tell the truth. Now, I'm a Tom for today. Tom tomorrow, too. Anyway, by the way, look up Tom Tomorrow. Really wonderful, wonderful political cartoonist. Big fan of Tom Tomorrow. Shout out to white people, I guess. Because I appreciate your consistency. At least there should be no tricks and no surprises. And if we're being tricked and if we're being surprised, then it's because we are delusional. And if you live your life in delusion and you get smacked to life, smacked to reality, I'm not even going to say it's your fault, but it's your responsibility. That's why I have to tell black people all the time. Because we got some black people that want to blame us for this. Yeah, because some Negro, some sellout, some Uncle Tom, handkerchief head Negro will get on this and be like, yeah, it's black people's fault. If black people do this and that. It is not our fault. It is not our fault. Racism, oppression, the poverty, the discrimination, the dehumanization, the mass incarceration, the subversion of our institutions, of our leaders, none of that is our fault. None of it. We are not to blame, but we are responsible for fixing it. If you live in a toxic environment and your environment is being polluted by a mega corporation and then you develop a cancer, you are not to blame for your cancer, but it's your responsibility to get it diagnosed and to do what it takes to cure it. And by the time people are wicked enough to dump pollutants in your community to give you the cancer, I know damn well you ain't stupid enough to think that they're going to be responsible for trying to cure you. So we didn't start the fire. It was always burning. Sister Tables, whatever that song is. We didn't start this. But we have to put the fire out. If I go home right now and my house is ablaze, and who put this fire here? And the arsonist is standing right there like, I put the fire there. Then put it out, please. And I'm going to petition him to put it out. I'm going to ask him, I'm going to appeal to him, to his morality to put the fire out. Who says? Dale Jones used to say, what kind of fool are you? So yes, we are not to blame, but we are responsible for solving the problems. And at this point, you don't need no prophecy. You don't need no crystal ball. I can tell you what the white folks are going to do. Now, I don't care what it is. And this new technology, robotics, artificial intelligence, nanobots, guess what? Black people going to be left out and left behind. Even though they probably got some hidden niggas. Y'all like to say hidden figures. Let me tell you, that was a play on words. Hidden figures was meant to say figures. That was hidden niggas. They got black folks, Indian folks, Nigerian mathematicians all hidden in the basement creating all this technology. And then they got some white man, some Bill Gates, some who's the dude that died of liver cancer after he stole 3 or 4 people's livers? Steve Jobs. They get up front like, oh, I've got the patent. And y'all know white folks are collecting money off of Muddy Waters music, Sam Cooke, all these black artists. White people get paid. If I pay the wrong song on this station, I get an alert from YouTube. And they were like, oh, you infringement. Goldberg family estate. The Williamson, the Schultz family estate. You can't play this music. So we know that's the case, but we don't see that when it comes to patents. I knew a brother who was an engineer. And he worked and had a good job. Made hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the company was making millions of dollars of what he made. And I don't care if you get paid 6 figures or 7 figures. If you work a job, you are being exploited. I don't care if it's Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan made much more money for the NBA and his owners than he made for himself. Not that any of Michael Jordan and his owners, none of them deserve that money, but whatever. I digress. I continue to digress. So yes, black people will be locked out. White people will do whatever is in their power to do to subvert us, to attack us, to demean us, to dehumanize us, to steal from us. And let me just make the point I was making before I derail myself. Whatever's coming down the pipe, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, high-end robotics, interstellar space travel, whatever comes up, no matter how many contributions, how many brilliant black people go and help to create this thing, to advance it, this new technology, this new era, this new economic boom, we will be left out. We will be underrepresented. It's going to happen. So, I guess I'll be 90 years old watching black folks hold up and said it'll be holograms. Instead of protest sign, there'll be protest holograms. Speaking some future language. Some black cyborgs. Oh, they're leaving the black cyborgs out of the new interstellar station. The moon mining company won't hire black cyborgs. The white cyborgs are getting jobs over. Help minority cyborgs. How long we gonna do this? How long, people? So what we have to do to avoid this BS, black identity extremists versus white nationalists, black farmers versus, what we have to do, what Kwame Ture told us to do, is get together, overthrow the system, and reinstitute a real just system. Quit all this hand picking and hand wringing. And you minority contractors, you minority farmers, or black farmers, black contractors, black academics. Oh, black scholars don't get tenure. Black home buyers don't get favorable mortgages. Black elderly get higher levels of abuse than white people in nursing homes. That's what oppression looks like. If you want to live under oppression, if you want to function as an individual under oppression, you refuse to be a revolutionary in the face of oppression. You refuse to be a radical in the face of oppression. You refuse to organize and collectivize under the face of oppression. That's what you get. That's what you get. That's how oppression works. What y'all think oppression's supposed to be? White people just snickering and calling you funny names behind your back? White people calling the police on you for doing nothing and you get to make funny memes about them? Oppression is life and death struggle. Oppression is a terminal disease. It will kill every single living thing on this earth unless we end it. So stop acting surprised when oppression does what oppression do, and fight oppression. Even if you're not a black farmer, black farmers should have been fighting with the community, and the community should have been fighting with the black farmers for total, permanent, global liberation. I mean, enough of this. I can come on the show every day. I could come on this on the air 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, and just talk about, well, the white folks didn't do this thing for the black folks. Anyway, let's move on. Talking about the falling income curve. If you pay any attention to the media, corporate media, if you read newspapers, you've been hearing about this thing called an inverted yield curve. The inverted yield curve is that when government bonds, treasury bonds, when short-term bonds start to have a higher rates of return than long-term bonds. Because the logic is, if you buy a short-term bond, which is an investment, an interest-bearing bond, if you buy it for the short term, you lock your money up for 3 to 4 months, then you get a return. But if you buy a long-term bond, you get a higher return. You buy a 5-year bond versus a 6-month bond. The longer you are willing to sacrifice, the longer you are willing to invest and allow your money to be held, the higher the return. But sometimes that flips. And it flips in a state when the investment class has no confidence in the long-term economy. And even though right now stuff is good, that means basically it's called a fire sale. That means investors know at any moment this whole economy is about to go into a recession. It's about to implode or collapse onto itself under the weight of its own irrationality. So they're saying, hey, they're pulling money or refusing to put money in long-term bonds and putting money in short-term bonds so that they can snatch out and get the money and run, essentially. Casino economics. And so since 1955, every time the yield curve inverts and short-term bonds have higher returns than long-term bonds, that is always a sign of recession. That means that the United States is on the verge of yet another economic recession. And they say that economics in capitalism, every decade or so, capitalism collapses because it's an irrational, unsustainable system. So the last time capitalism on a global scale collapsed was in 2008. So we're about a year overdue for yet another collapse. And they have to come up with a new name for it because every time the collapse comes, it's worse. So they can't call it a Great Depression because they don't want to scare people. So they call it a Great Recession in 2008. So I don't know what the name they're going to come up with. As soon as the white man decides what he's going to call this latest economic capitalist collapse. And you know what happens when there's an economic collapse? How capitalism fixes itself when it collapses? Does it use competition in the free market? Does it use deregulation? No. It's welfare. It's socialism. So when we go into this next economic collapse, those of us who survive, and a lot of people will die, because when capitalism is doing well, hundreds of thousands of people die needlessly from exposure and malnutrition. So imagine how bad it is when the system isn't working. But we who survive, watch how they frame it, watch how they name it, and watch how socialism kicks into effect and all this government support, all this public support, and all this come together type rhetoric starts. Socialism always rescues capitalism, and capitalism always destroys socialism. It's like a really bad relationship. But this inverted yield curve is almost a guarantee. It's kind of like if you go over a girl's house for a calm evening of movies and stuff, and you're not too sure, and then she turns her back to you and say, "Can you give me a massage?" You know that always leads to intercourse. That's kind of what the inverted yield curve is. It means it's a girl whom you're visiting, just a casual visit. Y'all ain't nothing official yet. And she asks you to give her a massage, and you know what she is. She don't want no massage. That's what this is. This is like we all about to get effed. The economy is asking. We're over the economy's house. The economy called us over and said, "Don't expect nothing." And the economy has called us over for Netflix and chill. We're more than halfway into the movie. We done sat and smoked a little joint with the economy. Had a little sippy sip, a little drinky drink with the economy. The economy has let its hair down and has turned and took its blouse off its shoulders and asked us for a shoulder rub. And we're rubbing the economy's shoulder, and the economy's about to screw us. I'm so good with these analogies. I'll sell analogies. I can make a fortune. Break it down into a language everyone can easily understand. So that's a good segue into this, the Demented Empire, Part 2. The United States is a demented, dying empire that is on the verge of yet another. And so the stock market is already, and people are like, the stock market is inflated. It's based on nothing. Only thing the stock market reflects is rich people's confidence in the economy. And I know I even got some people in my family that think they are rollers because they got a few little stinky stocks and they got a few little positions and they done bought some puts on some options and all that. And they really think they part of the game. But 90% of Americans who own stock only own about 19% of the stock. The small 10% to upper 1% of investors control well over half of all the stocks. And it's just something we play in. And most of us own stocks through 401k that is managed by the elite. So they taking their money. Not only do they have their money in the stock market, they call them institutional investors. The multimillionaire and billionaire investors are what they call institutional investors, which means the investors who matters and the investors who hold enough of the wealth to control the position. But then they got us in the game. They got us on these 401ks and all these monkey hustles. And even after they wiped out many 401ks and it was shown that a 401k is not a prudent investment for retirement, and they wiped out the savings of millions of Americans, they got right back in the game, I guess, man. We don't know nothing better. What are we going to be, socialist? So, and we all are socialists. We just don't get the benefits. We get all of the burdens of socialism, none of the benefits, but I digress. So, anyway, the institutional investors, only thing the stock market measures is the confidence that rich people have in the economy. So in this demented empire, which is capitalist, when you look at the recession, what is a recession? It's an economic contraction. And why do recessions happen? Do recessions happen because there's no work to be done? No. Does it happen because there are no materials for the factories to do the work? No. Does it happen because there are no people willing or able to do the work? No. Does it happen because people no longer have a need for goods and services? No. Does it happen because the workers are just unworthy or no. What causes an economic recession? Because when they close down factories and they lay off 1,000 people, why do they lay people off? Is it because the people can't or won't do the work? No. Is it because the factory equipment doesn't work? No. Is it because the lumber or coal or whatever materials that are needed for the workers to do the work no longer exist? No. Is it because the demand for the goods, products, the services that the factory provides is no longer present? No. So why do we have recessions? When need, materials, and labor are there. That's all you need for production. Need the material, you got to have a need for what's produced, the materials that needs to produce it, the equipment, and the work, and the skill. All that's present during a recession. So why do we have recessions? There's only one reason we have recessions. In a capitalist economy, if the elites can't profit off of an activity, then the activity is not allowed to happen, regardless of your need. That's all it is. A recession means that the rich people have lost confidence in their ability to extract profit from our labor. And therefore, the economy's got to shut down until they can be reassured that they can extract profit from our labor. Why does someone need to profit from me feeding, clothing, and sheltering my child? Why does someone need to extract profit from me expressing my art or engaging in my skill or trade? Why should anyone who's not involved in supporting that receive profit? This is a really stupid economic system. And that's why the economists can't do accounting. Because economists are not people who are scientists. Economists are priests. They are promoters of this ideology. And if you take an economics class, they are indoctrinating you into a belief system. They're not telling you about anything practical. And that's not all economists. We got Dr. Linwood Tauheed. He's an economist. We got Richard Wolff. You know. So we do have some economists that are not, that are like, what do you call it, Martin Luther. Martin Luther went against the church, but he went and created an even more wretched church. So that's probably a bad example. But you have some radical economists, some Marxist economists, some revolutionary economists that will be the ones who told me that the economics academia, the economic schools, the Chicago School of Economics, or AKA the Chicago boys that invented the concept and the techniques of neoliberalism, they will tell you that this economy makes no sense. But then you listen to me, but then you go turn on BET and you see Jay-Z throwing bundles of money at a strip club, and you see Floyd Mayweather, you know, laying in beds of money in a Gucci silk robe or a Louis Vuitton silk robe, and you're like, oh, the economy seems to work. So I guess this is an irrational, dysfunctional, non-viable, illegitimate economic system that is unstable. And not only is it bringing misery to billions of people, forget about it. I know y'all, let me not talk about the billions, because y'all don't care about them overseas people, because y'all believe there's a such thing as American lives. You know, when there's a tragedy overseas and people are like, were there any American lives lost? What the blood clot is an American life? But let's just talk about the United States empire. We who live within the security, within the egg, behind the shell of the U.S. nuclear egg, the nuclear umbrella. We who live in behind on the outside or behind the wall of U.S. imperial aggression. The poverty rate is said to be about 10%. For black folks, it's 20%. Anytime you hear a negative statistic about the society, poverty, infant mortality rate, education, school dropout, anytime you hear a negative statistic, you can pretty much double or quadruple, or triple, double, or quadruple that stat. And you'll know that how it is for black people in particular. They claim the poverty rate is about 10% for America. And that's the government lying their asses off. But they also lie. The World Bank and the IMF also lie. They claim that poverty around the world is greatly reduced. And the way they reduce poverty is not by giving more people resources around the world. The way they reduce poverty is by simply changing the definition of poverty. You know, that's literally how they do it. So every time more and more people fall into poverty under capitalism, they just change the poverty rate. So they say, well, the global poverty rate is anyone who lives on less than $2.50 a day. And then more and more people fall below that, and then they're like, oh, well, the global poverty rate is anyone who lives under $1.25 a day. And therefore, poverty has been reduced by more than half. We just lifted, 750 million people out of poverty by just changing a decimal point on a sheet of paper. That's the same way poverty works in the United States. They keep moving the bar. They would say, well, a family of four making $50,000 a year is middle class. Oh, well, a family of four making $48,000 a year is middle class. So they just changed the definition. But in pure terms, if you want to look at poverty in terms of the definition of poverty in terms of the application, if you want to define poverty meaning that you have no assets, that you control no wealth, you have no assets and no holdings. You receive no dividends because you have no investments. If you're pretty much living hand to mouth, check to check, and there are people making $80,000, $90,000 that live check to check, and there's a new standard coming out by more progressive economists saying if you cannot weather a $500 emergency fund If you have a issue in your home, or issue with your car, or a personal sickness or injury that costs you $5 or more, and if you don't have enough money to write that check and not think about it, then that's the poverty. And you have to know about people. When black people, we get some money, we want to elevate. You get some a little bit more money, you want to send your kid to a little better school. You want to buy a little better, higher quality food. You want to build a little better, you want to take a vacation because that's what your class instead does. And I don't fault y'all for that. I don't fault y'all for that. So if that's the case, you're still not secure. So when you put it all together on practical terms, the poverty rate is about 51% in the United States. And these are the people who do. Now, you might look at some poor people, and they own their home. They have maybe 2 cars. They might even take a vacation every year or every other year with their family. Their children might go to some decent schools. They might have degrees. But when you look at the totality, on the surface, they look like they balling out. But, they could have in that household $200,000 in student debt. They could be upside down in their mortgage. The affluent father who gets his briefcase and goes off, he could have some type of heart condition, some type of glandular condition that's costing them tens of thousands of dollars a year to maintain through treatment for the medications and such. So they're saying the real poverty rate is 51%. And then when you go to economic instability, meaning that you have enough money to meet all your needs and even have enough money to put into a savings every year, you're still in a precarious or economically insecure position, meaning that any major illness, any major setback, if you or your husband lose your job or get laid off, if your husband goes out one night and gets a DUI or any type of major tragedy or major upset, will immediately plunge you into poverty. And so those are people who are not poor, but are in what they call an economic precarious position or economically vulnerable position. If you include those people and add them to the poor, that's over 70% of the U.S. population that is either in poverty or one tragedy away, one misstep, one unfortunate event away from poverty. This is Gilded America. And if you don't know about the Gilded Age, you need to study up on the Gilded Age. That'll be your crystal ball. You want to know the future, look to the past. Go back and look up, study Woodrow Wilson, a hyper-overt racist, and the Gilded Age America. And what did the Gilded Age lead to? A major world war. Major conflicts. What do white people do when they're poor? Do they protest like the black farmers and hold up signs? No. When white folks get hungry, they get busy killing. They do organized industrial killing. They will invade China. They will invade Iran. Because, there's only 2 or 3 places left that the United States can invade. So, empires, even though there are literally trillions of dollars flowing through this system, the United States is very wealthy in fiat, but it's a very wealthy nation. It's also very rich in resources. But all of that money gets sucked up into the military in order to sustain the empire. And everyone looks at the military budget, it's $800 billion military budget. That's a lie. The military budget is not $800 billion. It's well over $1 trillion. Because guess what? Homeland Security, CIA, nuclear arsenal. The nuclear arsenal is not managed by the military, but it is a military apparatus. Right? Homeland Security, NASA is a military asset. So what they've done is they've taken a lot of responsibilities out of the Pentagon and farmed it out to other agencies, and so that they can indirectly fund those other agencies. So the vast majority, people talk about, my tax dollars, my tax dollars going to food stamps. No, your tax dollars are going for missiles. And guess what happens? Simply go to Google Images. I'm going to do it with you. Go to Google Images and type in military graveyard. Wait, military. I'm sorry, don't put in military graveyard. Put in military equipment graveyard. Go to Google Images and type in military equipment graveyard. Go ahead, I'll wait. I will wait for you. I will wait for you. I'll say it one more time. Go to Google Images and type in military equipment graveyard. And for those of you who can't do it, who won't do it, who have already done it and ain't gonna bother to do it again, what you will see is literally hectares, not acres. Not acres, but hectares of military equipment lined up. Jets, helicopters, tanks, off-road vehicles, unexploded shells, acres and acres and acres and acres and acres and hectares and hectares and hectares of this unused military equipment. It's never been in battle. It's never been in battle. That's where your tax dollars are going. They're not going to Bone Keisha on food stamps. In fact, people on food stamps generate more economic activity than they extract. The military is the drain on the system. You will see these giant planes. They have these certain planes that are big, like too huge to go on, and because they carry tanks in those planes. Aircraft carriers. If you drive up the West Side Highway in Manhattan, you see this giant aircraft carrier that they just stuck there, turned it into a museum. So that's what living in an empire. That's why they can't pay people $15 an hour. That's why they won't give us universal health care. That's why our schools are crumbling. That's why bridges are crumbling. Our schools, schools are crumbling. Bridges are You got to pay more than 2 to 3 times more for insulin in this country than you do in Canada. That's why the United States has over 150 military bases around the world to maintain the empire. And when you look at that military equipment graveyard, you're seeing welfare. You're seeing people invested. The reason they do that, they're not crazy. It is how they transfer wealth from the working class to the wealthy. We do have a trickle economy, but it's not a trickle down economy. It's a trickle up. They're stealing your labor. When you go to work at Walmart and buy from Walmart, billionaires are sucking your lifeblood. When you go to work at McDonald's, when you go to work for AT&T, when you work for these multinational corporations, there are people who do nothing. People who do nothing. People who literally inherited some paper. Baron Trump will have to do nothing. Baron Trump doesn't have to do anything, and he will make money from our labor. Bill Gates' son and grandchildren and great-grandchildren will never have to touch a keyboard. In fact, Bill Gates says he doesn't even allow for computers and technology in his house. While we're sending our sons off to, you better learn STEM, you better learn coding, our children can't play in the sun. Our children can't run and be children and develop real human relationships because every opportunity we sticking them in front of a damn computer. While Bill Gates' kids are just frolicking through the tulips because they're going to eat off of us. And people, the rich people, the institutional investors buy stock in Raytheon, Bechtel, Halliburton, Boeing, and GE. Y'all think GE, they don't make light bulbs. GE is a major military contractor. So then they get these trillions of dollars and put it in the Pentagon to keep us safe from nothing. America has no enemies. Everybody that's fighting with America is defending themselves. There is nobody attacking America. Everybody that's fighting America is fighting America to defend itself. Even Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Osama bin Laden said, I'm fighting America because they have troops on the ground in Saudi Arabia. And there's no reason to have troops on the ground in Saudi Arabia. And forget about Saudi Arabia. Right now, the U.S. has troops in Cuba, has troops in Honduras, troops in Puerto Rico, troops in Greenland, troops in Canada, troops in Japan, troops in South Korea, troops in Guam, troops in Thailand, troops in Australia, troops in the Philippines, troops in Singapore, troops in Germany, troops in Italy, troops in UK, troops in Spain, troops in Afghanistan, troops in Bahrain, troops in Qatar and Turkey, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Romania, Poland, Hungary, Portugal, everywhere. Over 150 nations, military bases, and troops. Guess how many foreign troops are stationed in the United States? 0. The United States doesn't allow for any troops. And when the nations I listed, that's open information. That's unclassified for U.S. military deployment. Can you imagine getting up and walking out of your house and seeing Jamaican soldiers walk down your streets, looking you up and down? Can you imagine getting up and going to work, and on your way to work, you see a tank driving down the highway, pushing cars out of the way, and it's flying a Congolese flag, and they're speaking Congolese or speaking French, patois. You don't even understand the language they're talking. Can you imagine going to your stupid churches to worship your God, and before you can even get in your church, you got Venezuelan troops patting you down, filling up your mother and grandma's genitals before you get to go in the church, and they don't even speak your language or worship your God? Can you imagine what that's like? Because everybody else around the world knows what it's like. And these soldiers don't tell the damn truth. Some of them do, but the vast majority of soldiers, when your cousin, when your uncle go join the military, and he was like, oh, I was in Korea, I was in Trinidad. They go to all these beautiful places, and we think the military is great. You get to see the world. No, you don't get to see the world. You get to oppress the world when you join the military. And you got the nerve, this sick, idiotic president, this narcissistic psychopath of a president that white people voted into office and still support, got the nerve to talk about America's being invaded by Hondurans. America's being invaded by Venezuelans escaping U.S. imperial crimes. So the U.S. is a military empire that is costing trillions of dollars. While they got people thinking, I don't have a job because of immigrants at the south, the border. Refugees are costing me my job because black people getting affirmative action and welfare, and we ain't had affirmative action in the last 20 years, and Bill Clinton cut us off at the knees. And even when affirmative action and welfare were fully funded policies, white women got more welfare and affirmative action than all black people and black men and women put together. That's where the dementia comes from. This is a demented empire. Dementia is when you don't consort with reality. You have no functional working relationship with what's real. Everything white people say about us, it's them. Lazy, violent criminals. No family values. So, because the United States is an empire, this $1 billion empire, the United States has a great deal of debt. Because the only thing that's propping up the United States is the fact that everyone has to pretty much engage in international commerce, especially oil, using dollars. The Saudi Arabians will only accept American dollars for their oil. So if you want to do international trade, you have to convert your currency to dollars. And when you convert your currency to dollars, you can engage in a transaction on an international transaction, mainly buying oil and petrol. And then you can reconvert the money back when it comes back to you. That is called the petrodollar. And the reason why people do that is because if they don't, the United States will kill them. There's no logical reason to do that. There's no logical reason why bin Salman, while the Saudi Arabian oligarchs can't go to the UK, go to Europe and say, we will take, you can use euros to buy it. You can use yuan to buy it. The yen to buy it. Why you couldn't use your own currency to engage in trade? Even if you were to say, hey, you got oil, we got grain. The oil's in the desert, but we got grain in Ghana. So let's trade bushels of grain for oil. Nope, you got to convert those bushels of grains to dollar value, and then they got to convert the oil to dollar, and you got to exchange dollars. And the moment you say, well, we're going off the dollar standard, we're going off the petrodollar, the United States would designate you a terrorist organization or a terrorist government, or say that you don't have democracy and freedom for your people, or you make your women wear burqas against their will, and they will come and kill you. And what comes with an invasion? Every single time the United States engages in a military invasion, they engage in rape. Go look up Okinawa. Okinawa has a violent crime or rape every other day. U.S. soldiers are going abroad raping and murdering. You cannot have military without rape and murder. And not just murder in terms of military actions. Soldiers rape, soldiers torture, soldiers kill. Soldiers do not fight for freedom. And that's why when they come back, they have higher rates of suicide and drug addiction. And so many veterans are laying in the streets because they can't come to terms with what they did. But they also know they can't go to their public and their family and say, listen, I took a little Arab boy and tied up his father in a chair, and I broke his kneecaps, and I crushed his testicles with pliers because we felt like he had some information. Or we got bored. Because if you're sitting somewhere, it's called a siege mentality. You take these young, uneducated rednecks or these young, undereducated black boys who see the military as a way out for their lives, and you dump them in a place where they're under siege, where they see enemies everywhere. They look at old women in the market, and the old women have venom and hatred in their eyes, the same as you would if they had Saudi Arabian troops or Iraqi or Afghani troops talking Farsi, walking up and down the streets with automatic weapons and accosting your children. We don't even like it when American police, who speak the same language, who come from the same culture and society, who worship the same God as us, and you see how outraged we get when the police pull us over and harass us. Imagine if it was somebody who was alien to us and we were alien to them. And so everywhere these young, uneducated men who have been indoctrinated and trained to murder people, you don't go to the army to learn how to fight for freedom. You go to the army to learn how to do industrial systematic murder. Soldiers are murderers. Industrial systematic murderers. Even George Washington, being the rapist pedophile that he was, in his address, you can go and read. It's available at the Library of Congress website. You can go read his last State of the Union and his exit address. And he said we should not have a standing army. Soldiers are not healthy people. Even in Africa, our greatest ancestors that y'all love so much, Akhenaten, outlawed warfare. Because any nation that has a standing army is going to become a totalitarian repressive nation. And you don't have to train or rally people to fight for what's theirs. You don't need an army to defend a nation. That's what anarchists have been trying to tell us, and they are right about this. In my building, if somebody came and kicked in the door of my building, all the men and women in my building will come rushing out with baseball bats and beat the hell out of them. You don't need a standing army to defend a nation. You only need a standing army to repress a nation and to engage in empire. People have a natural instinct to defend. And it was one time that there was a militia system, meaning that if there was a threat to the community, you rally all the men. But that's because it was a sexist society. In traditional societies, the men and women were warriors, and you rally the warriors. And when you're not at war, you're a farmer, you're a weaver, you're a fisherman, you're a griot and a poet and a scholar. But if somebody comes and mess with your community, ring the bell. And that is the way for thousands of years that communities defended themselves, and it was quite an effective means of defense. But until the European came with their Greek empires and had professional standing armies. Because military, when you put people in the siege mentality, anyway, let's go back to that. You take a young man from Inglewood or from rural Kentucky, and you put him in the middle of Afghanistan. And like I said, the old women and the children, you put him in the South Sudan, right? You have him marching through the hot-ass Congo, climbing the air he never breathed before, hearing these people talk funny. It changes the brain on a biochemical level. Every soldier commits atrocities. There is this thing called atrocity-inducing conditions. They put these people in atrocity-conducing conditions, and not only do the soldiers begin to attack the civilians around them, they start to prey on each other. We all know about the epidemic of rape within the military. But it's even the men are raped and sexually abused and harassed within the military barracks, assaulted in the shower by their brothers in arms. And we just step over veterans every day in America's streets. This is the demented empire. A society at perpetual warfare. And then you can't go anywhere. I mean, if you're not listening in the United States, if you live in the United States, you know this is true. If you're listening from overseas, America is so disgusting. Everywhere you go, you got to see flags and signs of patriotism. America's like a giant freaking cult. America's like a cult. And you can't go to any public gathering. We sing the national anthem and you wave the flag and you thank our troops. You go fly on an airplane and they were like, well, any veterans, any soldiers, you want to get on the plane first. Thank you for your service. What service has a bug? Ain't nothing. There's nothing you owe to a soldier as a U.S. citizen. Nothing. Nothing you owe to any soldiers. Your rights were given to you by bureaucrats. We never say thank a bureaucrat. We never say thank a regulator. We thank soldiers. Soldiers are not even allowed to operate within the borders of the United States. And even the Pentagon acknowledges we create more enemies than we defeat. Every time we bomb an encampment, or AKA a wedding that we called a terrorist rally, we create more enemies. So if you want to thank a soldier, say, hey, thank you, soldier, for making me more unsafe, for creating more people who want to kill me every time you get on some military vehicle and go overseas and commit an atrocity. There's more people that want to kill me because of my American accent. But we have to thank soldiers. You have to venerate and bow down to soldiers. You go into a restaurant and they're giving soldiers free food and giving them the best seat. This is a militarist society. It is a sick militarist society. And the soldiers aren't protecting us from a damn thing. The only thing the soldiers serve are the interests of the elite. They don't do anything for the citizens. And believe you me, if Trump gave the order tomorrow, those same soldiers that are willing to murder innocent Pakistanis and Afghanis and Congolese will do the same to us. And they will be breaking our children's kneecaps and crushing their testicles in some CIA torture site. Because they serve those in power. But every empire starts to venerate the military. And if you in your heart listening to me right now love the troops, just know that you are a thoroughly indoctrinated individual. And you need to work on curing yourself of that indoctrination. There is no inherent. The only reason you love the troops because you've seen Will Smith fly a U.S. jet and bust the alien across the head. And you think, yeah, that's America. The Pentagon controls the media. Every movie you see that has military equipment has Pentagon consultants. Every major war movie that has any type of military, whether it's a historical movie, whether it's a documentary, or whether it's some action movie in outer space, if it has a military theme or soldiers or some type of military action in the movie, there are Pentagon officials consulting that movie to indoctrinate us. And whenever I work with teens, all the way back from when I was working as a block brother at the Boys and Girls Club of Kansas City, Missouri, up until I was working with the Green Teens of the After School Matters program, one thing I always emphasized, especially the black youth, is do not enlist in the U.S. Armed Forces. Do not enlist. And I know I work with poor black kids that have few options. I was a poor black kid that had few options. I'm a poor grown-ass man with even fewer options. But I'm not about to go put a gun in nobody's face so that my children can eat. It's inhumane. It's unjustifiable. And even if you listen, Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, they don't talk about the military. They don't talk about defunding the military. They don't talk about shutting down military bases. They don't talk about defunding or canceling contracts with private military contractors. They don't talk about America is not a republic for which it stands. America is an empire, and we need to end the empire because the empire will collapse and crush and kill us all, even if you don't care about them foreigners. And that's the thing with you racists, you stupid racists. All you have to do is end imperialism. And I promise you, the next day, the Mexicans, the Hondurans, the Africans, the Haitians, the Jamaicans, they will get the hell out of Dodge. They don't want to be here any more than you want them to be here. But this is the only refuge they have from open, naked military aggression and atrocities. So the United States is an empire. It is a demented empire. The members of the empire believe that everybody's attacking them. Trump goes on and says Japan and China is taking advantage of America. Everybody's attacking America. Everybody loves and wants to come to America, and they hate America. They want to bring down America when all people want is to be left the blood clot alone. And we as citizens of the empire need to, number one, kill your patriotism. Stop being patriotic. There is no reason to be loyal to a place just because you were born there. If anything, make America earn the patriotism. Understand that your wealth and influence, your car, your computer, your nice clothes, your Gucci red bottom shoes, all the things that you enjoy come as a result of the suffering of humanity, the exploitation, the theft of the resources, the all abject enslavement, sweatshop, poverty, starvation, wages of the third world make your life so comfortable. So understanding that you owe an obligation to those people to fight against and vote against, to march against, to petition against, to struggle against, to organize against the imperialism of the United States. I'm not even saying give up your red bottom shoes or whatever the other nonsense y'all into. But understand the suffering that brought it to your plate, to your table, to your home. Every time you stop at a gas tank, you might as well be filling up your gas tank with the blood of Iraqis, Afghanis, Sudanese, Venezuelans. So we who live in the third world, we are guilty as well. So it is our obligation to fight against the empire from within as the rest of the world fights against the empire from without. And your life will be better. You might not have as many red bottom shoes, but there will be less pollution in the air. There will be less derangement in the minds of the people. There will be a more equitable distribution of resources. Maybe you won't have 3 or 4 houses. You might just have to live in your house. And if you want to travel, you might have to connect with other human beings to cooperate and coordinate and pool your resources. So we will have less fiat, less material crap. But we will have fuller lives, I promise you. Fight the empire. End the empire before the empire ends us. And if you work with a politician, I worked on the campaign of Rep 4. When anytime you engage with people who are part of the establishment, tell them, I don't support imperialism. What are you doing against imperialism? I told 4, your campaign slogan should be decolonize Chicago, decolonize the world. Even if you're a local mayor, alderman, state senator, you fight against the empire because your position of influence and power is a result of imperialism. And the main imperialism that we confront every day is the imperialism internal colony of the Native Americans, the internal colony of the black slums of America. The empire is a death trap. Surrender your empire. Surrender it, end it, reverse it, and pay reparations to everybody. There will be more resources to repair the damn bridges, to fund the damn schools, and to give everybody health care. And Joe Biden, oh, it's going to cost $1 trillion. Fine, you can take $1 trillion out of the Pentagon, the Pentagon won't miss it. You can fund free education from pre-K to PhD and full health care service, vision and dental, just from the Pentagon waste. So this should be your campaign. And you can add that because this is consistent with the black reparations movement, the prison abolition movement, women's rights, women's justice, LGBTQAI, because now nobody wants to hire transgender men and women, so they want to fight to get to military because they see that as their only way out of abject poverty. And they fighting Trump to stay in the military so that trans women and trans men can go overseas and murder people for a buck or two, for a GI Bill, for some college tuition. It's a sick system. So there is not one movement. I don't care if it's black reparations. I don't care if it's some liberal, whatever your cause for the environment, animal rights. There is not one cause that doesn't align with the anti-imperialism, anti-empire, anti-militarist movement. So whatever else you're doing, even if you're environment, who's the number one polluter in the world? The U.S. military. Who's the top consumer of fossil fuels in the world? The U.S. military. If not for the imperial army that the United States feel, the United States wouldn't have to import one drop of oil. It could be energy independent. So even if you're a racist redneck, everything from foreign oil to foreign people, one of the main reasons they're here is because of the U.S. imperialism. There should be a worldwide citizen coalition, a national citizens coalition against U.S. imperialism. Fight it. Q4 Radio, Bro Diallo Show, AM 1680. Please, please, please become a Patreon. Make a contribution. I did get your email, Mitch, about how you can contribute to the show. I will send you that information, how you can kick in. I really appreciate my active, engaged listeners. Subscribe to my YouTube and share the show. Go to the DialloKenyatta.com. Share the link to the podcast to help get the word out so we can have some independent, progressive, honest media. Please share the show. Friends, enemies, allies, lovers, haters, players, gangsters, anybody you know, share. Again, enough shout out to Ricky Kidd. Welcome home, Ricky Kidd. Shout out to Nikki. You know, you are Harriet Tubman. Modern day Harriet Tubman. They still out here. These sisters, man. Where would we be without our sisters? Anyway, I want to play some insights from political prisoners. Trump wants to reinstitute the death penalty and murder more of our people. And I'm going to try to play more voices from incarcerated men and women because I don't support the death penalty. State, federal, death penalty. I am a staunch opponent of the death penalty for any and all crimes because the greater crime is giving the state the ability to murder because that harms us all. But anyway, let's listen to the words. Let's hear some music and then we'll come back with the words of Jalil Mutaking, Bro Diallo, Q4 Radio. Stay tuned in at q4.org, AM 1680. You can also listen at the TuneIn app and iTunes Radio.